Although I've been listening to Carmen since childhood, my first academic exposure to this opera was in grad school through musicologist Susan McClary's controversial 1991 book, Feminine Endings. In a chapter entitled Sexual Politics in Classical Music, McClary writes that music, like visual art and literature, is almost always concerned, at least in part, with the organization of sexuality, the construction of gender, the arousal and channeling of desire. Music, with its ineffable capacity for holding meaning while being incapable of possessing agency, teaches us how to experience our own emotions, our own desires. For better or for worse, it socializes us. McClary insists that while popular music addresses these matters in spades, traditional musicology overlooks the social and sexual contexts of common practice art music. Accordingly, this old musicology misses the potential revelations discoverable through questions of how mere pitches can be made to represent gender or to manipulate desire. About Carmen, McClary concludes that it presents a kind of rehearsal for the 20th century crises over class, race, and gender. Historical and socio-sexual paradigms signified through music belong to new musicology, with McClary among the discipline's early scholars. Another important contributor to the field is the musicologist and philosopher Lydia. Her seminal 1992 book, The Imaginary Museum of Musical Works, established the foundation for 19th century European music's special position relative to other arts such as poetry and sculpture. In essence, Romanticism transposed the catalysts of music's meaning from extrinsic motivations, like religion and dance, to intrinsic and absolute truths. These reveal music's potential for highly abstract meanings that may be cohesive, yet contradictory. Put simply, musical signification equivocates. As the French philosopher Vladimir Yankelevich wrote in 1961, music means nothing and yet means everything. McClary, rebuking such rhetorical vacillation, warns that music's subjectivity must not be diminished, that its socio-historical contexts must be studied, lest the musicologists silence music, deny that it has meaning, and impose theoretical closure on discourse that often provokes far more than it can contain. In short, socially grounded criticism reinserts absolute music into real societal frameworks. To this end, Carmen demonstrates the futility of denying social determinism, a theme highlighted by Don José's narrative. He should have conformed, following his military and family obligations, marrying Micaela and caring for his mother. Instead, his obsession with Carmen leads him to criminality, desertion, and murder. If this were a real scenario, he would be wholly responsible for his actions. Here, however, McClary asserts that the Western tradition holds Carmen at least partly to blame. Her music arouses, and because she apparently has the power to deliver or withhold gratification of the desires she instills, she is immediately marked as a potential victimizer. In this reading, Carmen is dangerous because she entices and entrances José with dances such as the habanera and seguidilla, these popular numbers representing her physical seduction of Western metaphysical transcendence. In the habanera, an outsider dance that uses African rhythms, Carmen's chromatic melody parallels her desires for freedom, caprice, and autonomy. Among the phrases she sings are "Love is a rebellious bird that nobody can tame," and "Love is a gypsy's child, it has never ever known a law." Set against a bass vamp outlining just a few chords, her chromatic melody pushes the boundaries of conventional tonality while simultaneously being constrained by it. She may insist on her right to love freely and act independently, but traditional tonality, here the D minor and D major keys, cannot absolve her of her status as the other without consequence. And so questions emerge. Can the exotic outsider Carmen be integrated with convention and propriety? Can the focus of her seduction, Don José, liberate himself from his obligations and be enticed to freedom? In short, no. Don José and Carmen's fates escalate toward destruction once they cross into one another's orbits. In Act 1, Don José is ready to heed his mother's wishes and return home to marry Micaela. When tasked with arresting Carmen after she attacks another woman, he releases her after she beguiles him with her seguidilla. She sings, "I'm thinking about a certain officer who loves me, and whom in my turn I might really love." As a result, José is imprisoned for dereliction of duty. Despite such portents, he returns to temptation, although without total conviction. With his impassioned flower song in Act 2, set in D-flat major, a chromatic juxtaposition obsessively close to the keys of Carmen's habanera and seguidilla, his fire is nonetheless tempered by obligation. Carmen demands that he prove his love by running away with her, but he hesitates. Distant bugles call him to duty. By the end of this act, however, he has to flee with Carmen and the other smugglers, having attacked his superior officer, Zuniga. Carmen and Don José's disastrously intertwined fates culminate in Act 4's finale. In the previous act, Don José returned home to his dying mother, and Carmen discarded him in favor of the bullfighter Escamillo. Now outside the bullfighting arena, José confronts Carmen, pleading for her renewed affection. Parallel to the initial restraint heard in the flower song, Don José at first implores Carmen to let us go together to begin our life again. These phrases are in C major, a chromatic descent from Carmen and Don José's previous expressions of affection in D and D-flat, a structural echo of Carmen's habanera melody. But with Carmen's unwavering assertions of independence, Carmen will never yield. Free she was born and free she will die. The music modulates through several distantly related keys, tracing José's increasingly unhinged frenzy and the scene's discordant juxtaposition of events. As they struggle, the bass line's claustrophobic chromaticism distantly recalls Carmen's habanera melody, now stripped of seduction and careening toward death. At its climax, when Don José kills Carmen, Bizet juxtaposes Escamillo's bullfighting fanfare, heard from inside the arena, against Carmen's fate motif. The final parallel is clear. As Escamillo defeats the bull, Don José sublimates Carmen's fate into his own. He is ruined, and so she must be as well. In his final line, José chromatically ascends through Carmen's name, but descends diatonically into resolution, her freedom ideal intimated, then sacrificed to tonal order. As McClary maintains, Don José's only solution, the only way he knows to contain the damage, is through arbitrary, violently imposed closure. This interpretation positions normative romantic transcendence, the kind we experience in Wagner's Tristan und Isolde, for example, in opposition to the grittiness of operatic realism, Carmen being a forerunner to Italian verismo. Unlike Isolde, Carmen is not metaphysically transfigured in death. Instead, her tragedy is the reintegration of the violently tamed other into inured 19th century hierarchies on the verge of collapse.